National Assembly of Venezuela, a context in which deputies have made a call for the defense of the nation's principles, also for the pacific resolution of conflicts in the context of the U.S. military threats against the country, and also in a context in which the deputies are denouncing as well the military attack that have been performed by the United States from Trinidad and Tobago, the neighboring nation, in a false flag operation led by the Central Intelligence Agency. Let's listen to the statements of
the United States that was published as a scientific report that those people who consume from 1 to 2 drinks of alcohol a day saw benefits and protection for their health. And that is why there's many alcoholics, many drunks said that they took 1 or 2 drinks because it was recommended by the heart doctor to deal with high blood pressure. Many saw themselves go through sickness because of the high levels of alcohol that were consumed. But right now, a Heart magazine just published that those jobs and articles that supported the moderate consumption of alcohol were wrong in their prognostics, and that the alcohol consumption produces damages in any doses, especially if the consumption of alcohol is done in a high number, like seems to be the case of this lady. That drinks 1 day in and 1 day out, which takes her to commit things like the ones we are used to by the spokesperson of extremism, of fascism, that has seen a rebirth just by the doings of the algorithm, because that is the main reason for which now opinions, actions, political actions that before would have been considered detestable now receive the favor of the great corporations of social media and the manipulation of the algorithm, because that and not something else is what is generating the intention of controlling the masses of humanity in this moment. The algorithm that favors emotion over reason, the algorithm that puts people that are flat earthers, which were previously considered ignorant people, they're now discussing face-to-face with astronomers and geographers. Imagine a geographer trying to say, I want to explain to you that the earth is not flat, and then they're going against these ideas, because the algorithm conducts to that, to emotion. That is why this lady, this weasel, as Brito calls her, declared this, killed them all violently, making reference to the attacks, the brutal attacks, the inhumane, criminal attacks that didn't have any kind of right of human reason or go against the human rights and the UN Charter, dragging like worms do when she found the news of the explosions, the brutal explosions and the murder of over 3,000 of inhabitants of the Caribbean countries. Her reaction, it is not known if they were under the effects of any substance, but it was kill them all violently. Trinidad and Tobago supports the attack of the US and is asking for the elimination of all of the drug traffickers, because in the state of law stops existing, because international law ceases to exist, because international law is not respected. And this lady that should read some of the history of Trinidad and Tobago for her to know how the empire treats their colonies, so she knows how Trinidad and Tobago was exchanged in the Treaty of Menorca, because it used to belong to Venezuela, and after some fights and battles between England and Spain, the two kings shook their hand and they exchanged Trinidad and Tobago for Menorca again. That is the destiny of the colonies. When they're no longer of use to the purposes of Marco Rubio, they will be disposed as garbage. They would be exchanged for current currency, as they did in 1798 with Trinidad and Tobago. She should learn from her own history that this is the hug of the devil. This will not lead to anything else but suffering, to poverty, even more poverty in the Trinidadian people, because if there is a country that has been generous with Trinidad and Tobago, the name of that country is the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. If there is a country that has promoted a diplomacy of peace, that has promoted the integration of all of the people in the Caribbean, as CARICOM will point out, and also the immense majority of the countries in the Caribbean region, that has been the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. If there is a country that even in the moment of the creation of Petrocaribe, it is true that Trinidad and Tobago had reservoirs with the confirmation of Petrocaribe, because for strictly commercial reasons, because they produce hydrocarbons. Here the lady says, not known if under the effects of some kind of substances that now is known that it is harmful at any doses. We don't need the gas of Venezuela. When the mouse arrives, we would see if you really need or don't the gas of Venezuela. We would see what happens in the future. We will see if it wasn't generous, like that energy agreement signed between one of the biggest reservoirs of gas in the whole planet that are in the Republic of Venezuela, and it is a country to which completely exhausted their gas reservoirs, like Trinidad and Tobago. It is the truth, and the only true hope that the Trinidad and Tobago people had, the only real hope, was to recoup through this agreement the commerce of hydrocarbons that are already in their lowest levels in Trinidad and Tobago. We're going to see if they need or not kill them all violently. That was what that lady said in an example of barbarian that doesn't have anything to envy of the things that Netanyahu or the defense minister of their Secretary of Defense of Israel and the United States have to say. They don't care about human lives, and even more the human lives of those who inhabit this continent, this part of the continent. She should read some of the history of Trinidad and Tobago, that when the English arrived, the few inhabitants that were original from Trinidad and Tobago that were left by the Spanish, those were also exterminated by the English. The very few indigenous people, the very few people that were born in that land and that were left, they were exterminated first by the Spanish and then by the English. On October 16th, this news came in the newspapers of Trinidad and Tobago. The police of Trinidad and Tobago is investigating the reports of the death of 2 Trinidad and Tobago citizens that died in the front of the coast of Venezuela. Identified citizens of Trinidad that were believed to be dead by the U.S. attacks in front of the coast of Venezuela. Killed them violently. The Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago was asking for her own citizens, her own voters. That is the great difference. We have defended, and we defend, and we will defend, even with our own lives, the lives of all the Venezuelan men and women, whether they belong to any political party, whether that is in front of the one that we are currently on. I would like and focus this and for it to be left for the future. We do not need the Venezuelan gas. We're going to see when the mouse appears if you need it or don't. That is why with both hands I will support this agreement, because that is a reason of honor, of dignity, of morale, of expression of sovereignty and independence for Venezuela, to declare this person that drags as worms do, to declare her as a non-grata person for this republic that is the birthplace of libertarian, of men and women that are free. And also I want to highlight on the agreement that we support unanimously the denounce that yesterday did the citizen constitutional president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro Moros, the denounce of that agreement with Trinidad and Tobago. Venezuela loves the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and it has proven that in several occasions, but that is a government that is a trash government. That lady is allowing Trinidad and Tobago to be used as an aircraft carrier against Venezuela, and we are going to act in all of the possible ways, legislative, social, economic, for Venezuela to be respected. It is unacceptable to maintain an agreement that favors Trinidad and Tobago if that country has become an agent of aggression against Venezuela. We are not going to allow it. With both hands, we support this agreement. It is a matter of dignity for Venezuela that beings like this should be declared non-grata people. It is a matter of respect that President Nicolas Maduro has denounced that agreement on energy, and time will tell if they need it or not, the Venezuelan gas, when the mouse arrives.